Luke Ravelli here from the Mind Palace.
What happens when I stick my dick in a tree? This is what you get.
We're gonna throw buckets down. And we're gonna throw them from here, they're gonna land.
I am Birdman.
Hello, and welcome back to the Scheming Mind Palace podcast. I am your host, the true party king of the Neon Evolution, here to ask the 0036th question of the Scheming Mind Palace podcast. Since, of course, we're not stopping till we hit 1,000 episodes. And that question would be, what is there to remember? And I'm currently a bear, so I can't imagine a better time to be asking this question than when I'm a Pokemon bear, i.e. a neoned up Snorlax. If you aren't aware. If you aren't aware of the Pokemon bear, that is probably the cutest character in Pokemon. But anyways, the question of this week, we of course will be separating it within the past, present, future, and the Foot House. As always, from now on, we will be tying that old linear line up into a nice circle with the Foot House. Wrapping up after going so far into the future that you end up in the past. So, the question of this week, within the past, of what is there to remember. I will start personally. Personally, if I were to answer the question of who am I, it probably would have been Luca, my name. My name would have likely been the answer, and as I would have grown up in my more liberal upbringing, probably my race, political affiliation, that sort of thing, would have come to mind as to what I define myself as. But now that I've sort of undergone this personal renaissance of sorts, where I can dress up on camera as the most ridiculous thing possible and still not say this is what I am. I am just trying, as you might be able to figure out, I am trying to present myself in probably the most opposite way many people would have thought I would present myself. And that means probably next time I should just dress up in a suit and tie. Because that's probably the most opposite of this. Because, normally obviously I'm wearing neon, but this time I decided to just go all the way neon. All the way into my onesie neon Pokemon suit. Let's go. Because within the past, I was always such a goofball. I was always such a clown, such a child. And as I grew up, I began to look back on that part of myself with some amount of, not necessarily disdain or regret, but a feeling that if I go back to reliving that early childhoodness, that I would be somehow regressing in my own personal evolution. But in my newfound understanding, I realized that that is not at all the case, that that was a limitation. So I am fully willing to admit that I have recently, within the past month or so, been rewatching old cartoons, and it is just so nice to go back on the nostalgia binge of watching old Yu-Gi-Oh! And even more modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. And for example, that's probably the thing I'm binging the most as of the past month or so. And even though I'm watching this damn cartoon show from my childhood, I am able to look upon it with newfound understanding, newfound realization, newfound remembrances through looking upon it with my new perspective. So for example, for one example, I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, the end of the 3rd season, where throughout the entire show, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, if you don't mind me going into this super nerdy topic, or whatever, you're still listening, so who cares. But that show basically stars this clown of a character, because the previous season, the entry of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all about this ancient Egyptian pharaoh taking on the world, trying to learn who he's becoming, saving the world by remembering his past, which is definitely a theme. He's remembering, because this character doesn't even know who his name is. So to follow that up, we have this goofball character who's always just, having a good time, just playing card games, It's everything in his world is just children's card games. He doesn't even understand what girls are. It's are you a type of card? No, then I don't know who you are. This guy's so hilariously goofy. But in this 3rd season, it kind of takes a darker tone, where they travel into a world where these dual monster cards are kind of real people, and every time someone loses this card game, they die, or as close to dying as they can get in this children's TV show. They get sent to the stars, and it's it's really dark, because the main character just watches. He watches himself accidentally kill all of his own friends while looking for another friend that they lost. And wow, watching the journey that main character takes, Jaden Yugi, at the end when he confronts the villain of that season, the person who was responsible for bringing them all into this alternate dimension and trying to merge them all together. He remembers, she helps him remember, this character, that everything that they've done is because of their past together, the past that he has forgotten because it was so many lifetimes ago, and yet the memory persists, the memory of who he was and who she was in relationship to him. And it's something that I felt as though if any character told him, if any other method of confrontation between these characters, if there's any other method of resolving this conflict between the main character and the main villain, I can't imagine anything that could have brought them closer together than if the main character remembered the bond that they used to share, and then understood that everything that she had done was a crazy misunderstanding. Whoops. Sorry I killed all your friends. I just thought, that would help you grow into the person that can help save the world. Well, that was powerful enough for him to decide to merge with that evil entity and then drift off into the stars. And it was all because he remembered. It was all because he remembered who he truly was. And in my new understanding, I now realize that if we are all to welcome in the next great step in our evolution, it's not about awakening. We're not in the Mind Palace here to awaken people. We're here to help people remember through the Mind Palace. Because yes, there's no facts, there's no persuasion that can possibly bring people together on such divisive issues as, like, let's say the Israeli-Palestine conflict that's currently, bubbling up again, even though of course it never really died down. But yeah, there are so many conflicts where it just seems so impossible. Like, how can we possibly achieve, like, world peace, for example? How can we do that? We have to remember. That's the only way. That's the only way I see it. That we can possibly turn back the clock of all of the destruction that we have caused. But it's not even about turning the clock back, because if we think of it linearly, we can't turn it back. We can only go forward. And we only go forward understanding that the past that we progressed together was there for a purpose, the purpose of remembrance. And there are plenty of other examples in those cartoons that I've watched of characters who have this, like, super positive attitude, gonna take on the world, everything, and then the main villain, like, the villains try to beat him over and over, but he keeps beating them back, and it's not until the final villain makes him forget everything his father taught him, everything his friends have taught him, that his spirit is broken and he doesn't know what to do. He can't play his children's card games like he's supposed to. Yeah. And as a result, that is what I have learned from rewatching those cartoons, that I, in the past, whenever that tick of addiction popped up, I'd be like, no, you're adult now. You are a big boy now. You are an adult. You can't do that anymore. You can't watch cartoons anymore. No. Now I'm like, no, cartoons are the king. They inspire so much with the Mind Palace that I can't possibly know. But it's not about just rewatching cartoons all the time. It's about answering a calling, answering a remembrance. And I had this, I don't honestly even honestly, wow, as someone who's trying to remember everything, I can't remember what it was that inspired me to start watching it. But I am so thankful for whatever it was that set me on this path. So, after that, delving into the past, let us move onto the present. The present of what is there to remember. is remember I am. Thanks to the Law of One, which I of course learned all about through my dear friend Gabriel from Gaia Awakens and another YouTuber who I'm always so inspired by, Aaron Abke, right over there on the top, over there and there. And of course I have to give props to the LNL Research Group, the group of scientists and spiritualists that managed to conjure up the teachings of Ra, and through which I am so deeply appreciative of who I have become as a result of learning from the Law of One, because the Law of One is certainly not for everybody. It is certainly not for everybody. It is written in ways that might confound or confuse some people. They might be turned off and be asked why, or ask why is not written in simpler language. And that's for the very simple answer that it is written because Ra spoke very purposefully, such that the teachings in the Law of One would only unveil themselves, would only beckon towards the people who felt called towards it. When people who read it were inspired, had a light bulb go off, or a heart third eye awaken, Nixon Alex over here, they knew it was ready. They knew that you are ready to understand the Remember I Am. And it is a process, just like the process of that wow, the pronoun journey I'm on. Because I don't fully remember, just like I don't fully understand the Law of One, but I understand it enough that I keep trying to read and understand what is going on in these books, because they are juicy, to say the least. Because, again, the Remember I Am, to sort of sum it up as best as I can from what I've learned, it is a calling. It is similar to the Mind Palace in many ways that I have described before, where it was always there. It can't be taught. When everything is stripped away from you, everything you think you are, all that's left is I am. Just I am. I am. Complete consciousness. Unlimited awareness. It is divine, in a sense. That is how we get close to God. So yeah, no, and as you might be able to see from all of this detailing I've done on this blanket behind me, which I was inspired by, I was inspired to make it based on an interview between Aaron Abke and the LNL Research Group, where they talk about the best way to get in touch with the Law of One. And of course I've talked about this in previous episodes, but some of the beauty of the Law of One is also how they talk about the different levels of consciousness, the densities of consciousness, and now we're at the third density, and there's a lot more we can go to. So don't think when we reach heaven that just there you are, you're there, you're in heaven, or oh, you fell to hell, whoops. No, the hell is repeating this thing again. Heaven is going to the next level, where we have deeper understandings, but new problems, but we are more powerful because of those deeper understandings. So. The thing that is important, and the reason why I made this again, was because to rise in the levels, it's important to meditate, but not just meditate on anything. It's meditate on I am. Meditate on just remembering I am. Seeing God in everything. That is when we truly reach that level of progressing to the fourth density of consciousness. When suddenly everything is so clear. And the best way to do it is to cover yourself, wear something that you consistently, ritualistically use to get into that state. That's what I always like to say. How the mind palace is in and of itself a place of evolving your consciousness. And it can be any place, but the point is that it's a consistent place. So what I often like to do, because even though you can't see in the camera, there's a whole lot of other crazy neon stuff behind me since we are in my personal neon room. But I will get behind the blanket, sit on this bench behind me, and be kind of cut off from everything else. And that's where I meditate on I am. And yeah, it works really well. So, now that we've uncovered the present of I am to cure your crazy, as my glasses say, now that I'm super close to the camera, what will I, or what is there to remember in the future? Well, it's quite the cliche, but I will say that we remember that we're all one. You know? That we're all together. That thing you remember when you're on an LSD trip or a mushroom trip or whatever, or when you're really deep in meditation, when you've just come off of a multi-day fast like I like to do. All those things. They say the same thing. The same teachings. That we are all one. But it's not enough for me to just say it. No one's gonna, without having experienced one of those psychedelic experiences, whether it's through substances or through natural means, you're not gonna believe that we're all one until you remember yourself. So the future of what is there to remember is the future where we all remember together as one, that we are all one. And it is that point when we'll have world peace. Isn't that great? Isn't that something we all kind of want? A future where there is no war, there is no struggles, there is no suffering. Because like one of those great mind palace rituals that I have written up, that all conflict is misunderstanding. And just like in that hilarious cartoon show, once we all remember that we're all one, we're all gonna look at each other and be like, oh, darn it. Oh, I'm such a silly puss. I'm such a silly goose. How did I forget that we're all one? Oh, and I've been trying to murder these people this whole time. So silly. So yeah, no, that's the future in the recent future. But now to wrap it all in a nice little bow, we have, of course, the Foothouse. And the Foothouse of what is there to remember is after we all fully remember and we all rise in consciousness, we all eventually meet our, star ancestors, the people, the aliens that are watching over us, waiting for us to get there. They will await our rise to fourth density. Our rise to fourth density will come with the remembrances of all of our past lives, and it'll occur and we'll evolve from there when we fully embrace love as its own energetic force. And now, because the fourth chakra is, heart chakra and everything, to wrap it all up in a little bow, there is, the moving all the way to 7th density consciousness, because it's 5th after we've embraced love, where we embrace wisdom. How do we introduce love into us to spread love, to raise our own density and the density of everyone around us in the multiverse? From there, we then reach the doorstep of bring it all together and then becoming God. And then from there, I have to assume, once we're God, we'll do what God did when he started this whole thing of making life and chaos and evil and good and whatever the heck we used to describe it all. When God made that, it was because he was trying to figure out who he was. And I'm sure even after we all come back together and become God, we're gonna have that same itch, that same feeling that we just can't reach when we try and scratch it. And we're gonna have to separate all over again and forget it all, because we enjoyed it so much, and because as God, that itch, that desire to understand who we truly are is so powerful that we choose to forget it all, to experience it all over again. Because here in this density, this 3rd density, where we forget all of our past lives, the veil of forgetting, is the best time for transformation, the best time to make mistakes. That's why I'm doing this big mistake of a podcast. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm an architecture person. I'm an archiccultist. I have gardens to run. I have buildings to design, right? Why am I wasting my time with this? It's because I had a calling, and I felt the need to make this huge mistake. Because I feel like a wanderer. And I feel as though if I don't spread the knowledge and the remembrances that I have experienced, and just keep them all locked up inside, then it was all for nothing. What was the point in living this life at all if I don't fully express and exude my truth? What I believe is my truth, I send out into the universe. So I hope you have been enjoying this rambling from your, hopefully, favorite archiccultist. Hopefully there are other archiccultists. And if there are, I guess we'll have our own archiccultist cult for you to all join, if you choose. But either way, this is Snorlax signing off. A very, very teary-eyed Snorlax. But he's teary-eyed because he remembered. Like I remember that I am. So, sayonara, y'all. Peace.